All right, welcome back. We continue live right here on Pittsburgh CW. Bob Pompeani and Andrew Fillipponi with you at 412-575-2600. Andrew, Major League Baseball on its website, they were handicapping teams, and they gave the Pirates a 0.1% chance of winning a division, predicting their record would be 61-101. Does that sound about right to you? Because 61 sounds like maybe too many wins, the way they are constructed right now.
Yeah, I think they gave them the 0.1% seems a little high for me, Bob. I mean, here's my thing with them, okay? So I am in favor of what they've done in terms of you've got guys who are your core players who are you're not going to win around. You know, Josh Bell is not going to lead you to a pennant. Jamison Tyone, 2 Tommy John surgeries. He's not going to turn into the next Garrett Cole or A.J. Burnett for this team. So I understand. Joe Musgrove, same. I get trading those guys. What I don't understand is how you could have an entire offseason where you don't sign one major league free agent. And even when you're a team that is in the rebuild mode, Bob, why wouldn't you look for some guys on one-year contracts that you feel can help, give you innings or give you at-bats? And if those guys do well, well, then you flip them at the trade deadline and get even more prospects in here. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Why wouldn't you sign like James Paxton, formerly of the Yankees, or Cole Hamels, to both of those guys to 1 year?
Or how about Jock Peterson?
I think he signed now.
Yeah, 1 year, $7 million.
Right.
Year, $7 million. To your point, trade him at the deadline. He hits 25 home runs before the trade deadline. Guess what? Team needs offense. Team needs power. You get him.
Yeah. I just bring up starting pitchers because those seem to be the guys that are always in demand in July.
So are bats.
Paxton had a horrible year because he was injured last year, but the year before that with the Yankees, he was outstanding. And Hamels is a veteran with a long track record as a free agent. What would it cost to sign both of those guys? Maybe $12 million, $13 million total? To me, that would be money well spent. I mean, if those guys have other offers, so be it. But if they're just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, why wouldn't you bring those guys in here? Mitch Keller, can learn at the feet of these guys for a couple of months, can be around them. And if they pitch well, awesome. You trade them for more prospects, and you accelerate your rebuilding process.
Right. And the other thing is, you are trying to sell tickets eventually when people return, and that's another reason to do it, I think. But they're thinking beyond that, and they may think that's a waste of money. We're trying to conserve, so it's time to spend when spend, but they won't do that either. So that's why it's a conundrum. We got to go to the lines here.
But Bob, that's not spending. That's not spending in today's baseball is giving out like $200 million contracts.
But
that's
we're talking about Bob Nutting
in 2021.
We're talking about Bob Nutting. It's a different dynamic because he doesn't want to spend $12 million just because. He won't do it, and that's the point. So Will in McKees Rocks, you're up. Go ahead, Will. How you doing?
Hey, Bob. How you been?
Good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for taking my call as always. I appreciate you guys. I have a question about the Penguins. Now that they have gotten new GM and a new director of operations, do you think if things don't pick up in the win column, we could see a new coaching change soon?
Andrew, that's a good question, Will, only because whenever you bring in a whole new management team, I assume everyone's under audition, including coaches, and Mike Sullivan has a distinguished record. I mean, he's done great things here, and he still has 2 years left. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be here for it. If they miss the playoffs this year, Andrew, and they're right on the line. They came into the night out of it. Now they're jumped by, I think they're tied with the Islanders in points or whatever. They're real close. If they don't make the playoffs, what happens?
Well, so I think if they miss the playoffs, and then that would be 3 years in a row without winning a first-round series. Islanders 2 years ago, Montreal last year in the play-in round, and then what you're describing this year. At that point in hockey, that's an eternity. I mean, that is a long time when half of your sport makes the playoffs to not move past the first round. And so at that point, I think a lot of things would be on the table. Sullivan has a long contract that when he signed it made him either the highest paid coach or the second highest paid coach in the entire NHL. So they'd have to eat a lot of money to get rid of him. But we've seen this team now, they're spending extra money to win. They didn't have to bring in Brian Burke. I don't think I don't think it's an internship, Bob. I don't think he's working for free. So, we just talked about the Pirates. The one thing I'll give the Penguins credit for is they spend to win. And they don't cut a lot of corners. In fact, I think of the 3 teams in town, I know that the budgets are different for each sport, but I think the Penguins do more to win than any team in town. And that's not just the players, that goes towards the coaching and the entire development process too. They spend the money to try to put the best product out there. And so, yeah, it would be a lot of money to eat, but I don't think it's off the table if they miss the playoffs.
Let's go to Squirrel Hill. We have Rick joining us right now on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Hey, Rick.
Hi,
Hey,
Bob and Andrew. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hey, I just want to talk about the Penguins. I think they definitely need a big body on the offensive end. Maybe it sounds stupid, even if the guy can't score, but if he's hard to move and can screen the goaltender. And I think on the defensive end, I think they need somebody big that can move people away from the net. And then I have a question about the management. It seems like they have so many upper management people now, Hextall, Burke, and Morehouse. And with the pandemic, with revenues down, I don't know how they afford all of them. Do you think Morehouse could be on the way out?
I would say no. I think, as Andrew said, they like to do what they think is right to win, and they're trying to, navigate through, a pandemic, which means no revenue at the gate for them, which is really critical for a hockey team. But I also think they realize ultimately most of the money comes from playoff wins, series wins. Then they need to budget for that. They need to get that, and therein, lies their dilemma right now. With regard to big bodies, Andrew. Tampa Bay is the best example, and I agree with the caller here. They don't have enough of those, in my view. After Hornquist left, he's not a big body, but he's an agitating body. Tampa brought in Patrick Maroon, and he was a big guy who won a cup with St. Louis. He wins one with them back-to-back years, a big guy who goes to the net and causes problems. I do think they have a need for that. Do you?
Well, they got rid of that guy for Mike Matheson. They said goodbye to Patrick Hornquist. They had the player that would symbolize or represent that best. My question would be, does Sidney Crosby, let's talk about him specifically for a second. Does he want to play with that player? Because when he had an opportunity after the pandemic, when things got started again, it was Connor Sherry that was on a line with Sid and not Hornquist. They demoted Hornquist for the most part down to the third line. It makes me wonder, Bob, if he wants to play with a slower guy at even strength that goes to the net. I have my doubts about that. So, Patrick Maroon's not a top-line player. You're telling me they need to find somebody like that more in their bottom 6?
I'm telling you, need that for your special teams. Patrick Maroon was on the ice for a lot of their special teams.
So where's
goals.
Gensel go?
Well, I don't know, but I don't know if Gensel's going to wear out if he's there every single time in front. Quite frankly, they need more, net front presence. I don't think you can win on a power play by just shooting and making big passes. You got to go to the net. You got to get rebounds and make people move so that you break down defenses. I agree with Sullivan on that. So I think a big body helps you, and we're up against the break.
But I don't know where that guy fits, Bob. They're spending right to the cap.
I understand.
Okay,
you make a deal.
The guys that fill up. Okay, so who in their top 6 would you move out?
I think
on their
eventually
wings?
a guy like Rust or Gensel could be sacrificed to get something that they need. I really believe that.
Wow.
I
think Rust.
You're not going to trade. If you're not going to trade, Andrew, the core guys, right? Let's say they're off limits,
Yep.
which I think they probably are. Or you can't move them because there's no trade clauses or whatever the case may be. What do you do then? If you're Ron Hextall, if you're trying to do something, what do you do? Who do you move if you're not going to move them? What gives you reason to believe you'll get anything back unless you give them something of value?
Bob, I agree with you. To me, when they went out, they overpaid in trades in terms of what they gave up, in my opinion, in the contracts they took back, the money they took back. They overpaid for Zucker and Kapanen, in my opinion.
All right, Andrew,
Now,
we got to go
those
right
guys
to
are
break. I'm
decent
sorry. We went too long there. We'll talk more when we come back. It's live. That's what happens when we're live. We'll be right back.